You are listening to the Beaverton, North America's trusted source of news.
This week on the Beaverton, Mark Carney's Liberal Party won a minority government. Carney thanked those closest to him for their support during the campaign, including his wife, kids, and offshore investment advisors. Pierre Poilievre lost his seat in Carleton. Now he'll have to shout his never-ending slogans down from the rafters during question period. The NDP vote totally collapsed as progressive voters rallied around Mark Carney's promise to never do anything progressive. That's right, it's time to make fun of the news once again. It's the Beaverton Weekly Report Election Recap Special. Welcome to the show, everyone. So glad you were tuning in for our very special election recap episode that comes out at the exact same time as our regular podcast episodes. We could have released an episode earlier, but obviously we had to wait to see how the riding of Terrebonne was going to go. Liberal, if you're wondering. Joining me this week on our regularly scheduled special episode are two of our regular panelists, both of whom just told me they voted People's Party of Canada by accident, Ian MacIntyre and Megan MacKay. Welcome.
I just saw the purple and got excited.
I never said it was an accident.
That's true. I inferred good vibes, and they weren't there. You also sadly lost your seat that you were running in the prairies.
Oh, we're already in. I got to pour one out for poor Ian MacIntyre, the candidate who was running in. I wrote it down here somewhere. Geez.
It was
Elmwood,
a riding with a
Transcona.
Yeah, there we go.
Elmwood, Transcona in Manitoba. It is really something to have someone with your exact specific name running in the election and to watch them get fucking shellacked. He ran in the by-election a few months ago, too, and did worse.
Oh.
I just keep getting Google alerts for my name, and it's like, Ian MacIntyre loses. And I was like, oh, no.
It's the Canadian Screen Awards all over again.
Oh, man. You know I've never been nominated for a Canadian Screen Award.
That's not true. It's part of the Beaverton. You have.
No, I didn't. I wasn't part of that. We're getting into the tea here at the
Right.
Beaverton this week.
It doesn't matter.
I was.
The intricacies of Canadian Screen Awards nomination processes are definitely what people have tuned in for this week, but maybe we will leave them behind. And sorry you didn't get a nomination. If it helps, having a billion nominations and no victories is maybe worse. I'm the Meryl Streep of the Canadian Screen Awards. All right. Well, yeah, so obviously there was an election just the other night. Last night as we record this, a couple nights ago as you were listening to it. How was your election night? Did you enjoy it? Was it a fun watch? Was it anxiety-inducing? How did you guys enjoy election night 2025?
I think my body invented a new kind of gastrointestinal distress. I was very nervous for a while there.
Yeah.
It got when it started looking like, is this a tie? What is happening? It was sobering. It was more sobering than I thought it was going to be last night, for sure.
I definitely agree. And what was so interesting about that was, and we're jumping ahead a bit, but that was the moment where they had called it an hour earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was watching CBC because I'm no longer, legally required to pretend I watch CTV. I was watching CBC. And so, the whole time they've called it an hour earlier, and CTV called it too, don't get me wrong, but they've called it. And so the whole time they're like, what's Mark Carney going to do as PM? How's this going to work? How's he going to navigate this and this? We don't know if it'll be a majority. And I'm just watching the ticker, and it's like the Conservatives are 2 seats behind them. And Rosie Barton's just like, so we'll see what PM Mark Carney does. And I'm like, what? Can someone acknowledge the ticker at the bottom of the screen keeps getting closer?
I, like most times in my normal life, spent all of last night terrified of youths. Young people coming out to, like they were undercounted or underreported in the polling, and like they were going to come out and just put Poilievre over the edge. And then come to my house and make fun of my pants or something.
Yeah. That's the thing you're sensitive about.
Yeah.
Your pants, for sure, and your nomination or lack thereof. Yeah.
They know about it.
They know.
The teens, they always zero in on the thing.
They love the Canadian Screen.
They follow it really closely.
Yeah, that blue wave in the youth vote is crazy. I don't know if you guys saw the high school mock election that they did. They ended up giving the Conservatives a minority government, the high schoolers that voted with Elections Canada.
There is something, and it was true, and people have started to do this for the United States, which is they broke down the Gen Z or Gen Z vote, and they did it by, rather than just being like a monolith of all of Gen Z who voted, because there's a lot of Gen Z who are old enough to vote now. It's not just like a few. Like in 2020, it was like, oh yeah, there's like 3
I'm pretty
years
sure
of Gen
they're all
Z.
still 12 years old.
Yeah, exactly, and we're all still 26. Yeah. But like so they broke it down, and like I think it was like 22 and up voted like millennials, and then 18 to 21 voted like Germans in 1933.
Oh,
it was
good.
like what the fuck is happening with the 18 to 21-year-olds?
And super heavily for men voting
Yeah,
conservative,
for sure.
way more so.
Yeah.
Or should I say boys, little boys.
Little boys, yes. Little boys and their toys loving Andrew Tate and Donald Trump, yes. And then, like, that is a part of the short answer. So, like, anyways, we will, I'm sure, spend many episodes of this podcast breaking down what is wrong with young men in society and try to make that fun. Woo. But, that was, so you're right. That was a huge part when the election was just getting tightened. I do want to talk quickly before we get into all the results, a few other fun moments that I saw. So, one, there was an interview from an NDP post-election rally, which, like all the NDP election rallies, had 3 people in the background.
And they were all BYOB.
Exactly. But like as the guy was talking, and I think it was still on the East Coast, so I think it was at Halifax, which the NDP traditionally does well in, but there was no one there. And as the NDP candidate in the local riding is talking, behind him there's a Jagmeet Singh sign taped to the wall that is just very slowly falling off the wall, and then it's hanging on by a thread. And I took a screen grab at that point and posted it on Twitter, and then it just descends to the floor as the interview wraps up, and it's like there has never been a more perfect metaphor in political history than this sign just slowly and then quickly descending to the ground.
Luke, this is the NDP we're talking about. You think they're going to have name brand Scotch tape? No, that was held up with someone's old gum and a prayer. Mostly like their policies.
Yeah. So there was that, and then I'm not sure if you guys watch CBC, but if you did, and I'm sure listeners will know this if they did. So they have the At Issue panel, which they do on the National all the time too. So it's Andrew Cohen, Chantal Hébert, and Althea Raj, who's also a very good columnist for the Toronto Star. And then they often were seated next to them with like a politician. So there was Jason Kenney a lot of the night.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was also a Liberal MP who had like chosen not to resign and was pretending to be happy about that, or chosen not to run again and was pretending to be happy about that because he so clearly was mad. And the whole night, any question that rose that anyone on the panel or Barton threw at him, he would just throw like campaign platitudes of like, Canadians want someone with ideas, not slogans, like just fully campaigning. And Althea Raj's face as she was progressively like, shut the fuck up and answer the question. And to the point that after an hour of this, she snapped and was like, no one can vote anymore. The election is over.
Yes.
You could just answer the question like a human being. And the guy was just like, yeah, got it. Anyways, we axed the tax. We just went right back to it. And she was just like, I will murder you before the end of the night.
See, this is the thing. I was listening today earlier to the Bulwark podcast in the States because they were talking about the Canadian election. It's like a never Trumper kind of pseudo-Republican kind of thing. And Tim Miller was like, well, up in Canada on their coverage, they don't have the big boards and all the fancy tech and all that stuff, but they still get it done. And I'm like, yeah, we don't need all that stuff because we don't need keys jangled in our face, but we have drama. Yeah. We have drama between the pundits.
Grounded human drama taking place at what looks like a Sephora counter. That was a really weird looking set. But
it took me forever to realize that was the CBC atrium.
Yeah.
Why'd they make it look like? Sorry, CBC. Why'd they make it look like that?
I get they have to use colors that don't match any of the parties, right?
Like inside of a paper bag, inside of a Sephora. Like it's very, very odd. Weird choice.
Gold and black was like the theme. Yeah, I was thinking prom, but like similar.
I just love to imagine that someone was done their like work really late and was like, I can't go home. I can't cross through my car is parked outside there and I'm stuck here.
I don't want to go to Wellington. And then the last thing before we get into the results is that I just love, and I forget it happens every time there's an election, but I love it so much, is the polls close on the East Coast and we have 2.5 hours to fill before the polls close everywhere else but BC. So we spend 2.5 hours with our panel just breaking down like vote by vote of all the East Coast ridings.
Baby! It's maritime. That's all we're talking about. And trust me, on the East Coast, we live for it. We're going to make you all listen to all of our tiny little ridings like Antigonish and Pictou, Miramichi.
Like, it was to the extent that, like, at one point, I swear to God this happened, like, people were like, it was so low numbers, even within that riding, it was so low numbers, like, a lot of the votes hadn't been returned, and they were like, oh my God, the Conservatives are doing so much better than we expected. Look at this. 4 years ago, they only got, like, 30% of the vote. Now they're getting 45% of the vote. But it was such low totals that it was like, yeah, the McIsaac family showed up and voted. Like, it was like, what? Like, are we possibly drawing some wild conclusions from a very small subset of the East Coast of our country? And, like, they kept acknowledging, like, it's probably too early, but, like, clearly we have nothing else to talk about, so we're going to keep talking about this. But it's so funny because they do that. They spend 2 hours just breaking down every East Coast riding. And then, of course, at 9:30, a billion ridings come in. They forget all about the East Coast until at the end of the day, they're like, anyways, wrapping up our East Coast because all those votes are finally in and they've fully counted. Turns out Atlantic Canada voted the same way it always did. Mostly Liberal, bit of Conservative, 1 or 2 seats different than 4 years ago. Moving on. And it was like, we spent 2 hours on this just thinking about what a wave was happening or whatever. And it's like, nope, same as always.
So you're proposing they should have like knocked it out in 10 minutes and then just shot the shit and been like, did you guys see Sinners yet? It's so good.
I mean, yes, but also what I would honestly propose is just force the East Coast ridings to stay open longer, and then we don't start the election special until 9 p.m. Eastern, because like you don't have the content. I'm sorry, you just don't have it.
We're not open for things that late on the East Coast.
You don't have to vote. Everyone can still vote. The last hour can just be people quietly sitting. I don't care.
We only got Sunday shopping a few years ago. We don't like staying open longer than we have to.
How long have you had quietly sitting, Ian? Like, you must have had that forever.
No, that's true. Quietly sitting is our pastime.
Yeah, I mean, I can send around a priest to make you feel guilty about something if you really want to hit all the all the tropes on that.
More stereotypes, please.
Yeah, anyways, that's my one little, like, every time I forget, oh yeah, we have 2.5 hours, like 2 hours for most of East Coast, 2.5 for Newfoundland, because everyone knows why. So then, and it's just so funny to spend so long on something, forget about it entirely, and then have the results be exactly what everyone predicted at the start of the night, and it be a complete waste of time. But it's a very enjoyable waste of time, but I'm always like, this is nuts. 5 votes came in and we're freaking out about it.
I forget which CBC journalist it was that they had just basically went on a pub crawl out there.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
like, well, I'm in another bar out here and at another party, I think. Just seemed very confused.
Everywhere I go, I split the G in Guinness, and that's good luck for the campaign.
It's progressively tipsier over the night.
Yes. Okay. So that was our night that was. But of course, what really matters is the results. So Liberals have won a minority, but not majority, the way they were hoping for in government. 169 seats. It looks like they're going to end up at. There's a nice plus 100. It could maybe get to 170, maybe 171 if there's some revotes or whatever. But they're probably going to almost definitely going to fall short of the majority government that they were seeking. Conservatives got 144, Bloc got 22, NDP got 7. Jesus Christ, we're going to talk more about that. And the Green with their Elizabeth May still hanging on 1. So talking about the Liberals first, if you had 4 months ago, 5 months ago, if you had said to anyone in this room, on the street, anyone in politics, the Liberals are going to walk away with 169 seats after the next election, they would have been overjoyed like you couldn't even imagine. At the same time, a lot of people for the last 4 weeks have been saying this is going to be a 190, 200 seat majority government. So obviously we met somewhere in the middle. How would you rate the Liberals and Mark Carney's performance in this election?
I think for a guy who basically waltzed in here and said, hi, I'm Prime Minister shaped, I think he did pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and given the production, like the projections from 6 months ago are going around now online everywhere, and it really is sobering to be like, okay, like that could have happened. That is the world that could have been, and now we're here. And I think I still struggle to feel good about it because it was so close, and that's indicative of like this greater problem of the alt-right kind of infusing itself into Canadian society, and it's not going away. I think if we had that decisive blowout, we had 200 Carney heads sitting in Parliament. We could hope that the Conservatives would be like, okay, there isn't really an appetite for this alt-right, Pierre Poilievre style politics in Canada. Maybe we'll revisit and pull one of the 50 Carney clones we've got in the Conservative closet out and run him next time. But now I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do.
It really freaks me out because it seems like there's such an appetite for Pierre Poilievre's politics. Now I'm doing the alliteration thing. There's such an appetite for that and not an appetite for him. But I don't know if that was a weird fuck you from the people in Carleton. And if we voted for president or prime minister the same way they vote for president in the States, I wonder if Poilievre would have won. Let that spook you out the rest of the night.
No, it's interesting. I mean, it's so hard to think about because obviously then you still have to factor in electoral college and how that break down. It wouldn't just be a popular vote thing.
True,
I mean, popular vote, the Liberals did win the popular vote, which is worth noting because they didn't 2021 and 2019. The Conservatives won the popular vote.
Yeah.
Both parties' popular vote percentages are way higher than they were in 2021, 2019. even though, the seats haven't moved that much. The Liberals got more, the Conservatives got more. But it's because, of course, the NDP, the Green, the People's Party of Canada, and the Bloc's numbers all plummeted.
Yes,
the NDP
yes.
especially, of
It was
course.
very nice of them.
Strategically plummeted, as we joked on Twitter. Yes. So, that is, we've essentially moved into a two-party system plus the Bloc. Don't get me wrong, the NDP have 7 seats, but, that from in the vast majority of ridings, you're looking at a turn to American style where it's you're either Dem or you're Republican and you don't have other choices. Now, I don't think that will last. The NDP has been declared dead a million times before, and they've risen from the ashes, even so far as going all the way up to official opposition. So I don't think it will last because I think Mark Carney is very clearly going to govern from a center-right position that will inevitably push progressive voters away. And where are they going to turn? Unless they're in Quebec, they're going to turn to the NDP.
Yeah, except I think the problem with that is going to be he's going to govern center-right, and it's going to slowly chip away and disappoint everyone that voted for him. And the people who should, in theory, be happy with the policies he's going to have will fucking hate him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no conservative vote. Like, they are convinced he's the devil already. You're already seeing it online. They're never going to thank him for the things he does or be happy with the things that he does. Not that I'm saying they need to, fall in line or anything, but, the irrational hatred is already baked in. He's Trudeau number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're seeing it already in the UK with Starmer, and it's like, what if I ran a Labour Party, and, obviously coming off of Corbyn, I'm going to run the Labour Party right to the middle of the road or even the center right of the road, and that's a great way to get elected once, and then never again, which he's already seeing. So the quickly talking about how the Liberals won, they did decently well, as we talked about in Atlantic Canada, even though it looked like they weren't going to be for a bit. The polls went all the way. The advance vote came in, and they went back to their normal amount plus 1 or 2. They did very well in Quebec, which is really the story of how they won this election is Quebec, because the Bloc dropped, 10 or 12, and the Liberals got 11 of them. They did pick up a few seats in the Prairies and BC. They actually, at last count, at least lost seats in Ontario, which is, or were losing, and I think, as my math is, they've still lost 1 or 2. But so they certainly didn't pick up any, or at least didn't pick up many. Why do you think Quebec was so much more responsive to Carney and so much less responsive to Poilievre than Ontario was, even though Ontario and Quebec often kind of go similar ways in federal elections?
Quebec has a long history of being their own kind of people, right? They don't really want to be controlled by anybody. That's why the Bloc exists, right? So I think when Trump starts running his mouth about annexing Canada, I think the Quebecois people have a lot of experience being like, hey, fuck that guy. And I think that they made a pragmatic choice based on the information that was presented to them that, hey, maybe Pierre Poilievre is not going to be the hey, fuck that guy candidate. You might want to go with Carney, although he'll say it probably a little quietly. But he'll still say it, right?
To me, that's the biggest crux of what happened to Poilievre, is that Poilievre is the hey, fuck that guy. He's been that guy for 20 years.
Yeah,
clearly.
But it was, hey, fuck that other guy, not this guy.
And then the one time it's actually important, he won't do it. And it's like that. I feel like that's telling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing, is Poilievre being such a good attack dog.
Yeah, that's all he's good at.
Yeah, being unable to attack Trump. And obviously, the reason being for Poilievre is that he agrees with him.
Yes,
and
he
likes him, and he wants to bring, he's inspired by Trump. So
and that creepy cabal that Stephen Harper runs, he has talked to them. He thinks he's part of this whole new world order of far right governments that is falling into alignment. The Orbans and the Erdogans and the so forth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I cut you off by being angry.
No.
Fight. Finally, a fist fight on this podcast. God.
No, I think
You're going to be telling us to kiss in a second.
Yeah, I am. Give it 5 minutes. It's fine.
Great way to make up after a fight. I think you both hit the nail on the head, and I think Megan, especially the fuck. There's two main reasons for the Liberals' victory, right? It's Carney is not Trudeau, and Carney is not Trump. And he's not Poilievre, so I guess 3. So there's, that is a huge part of this, and I think the Quebecois are so much more different than Americans than the rest of us.
Yeah.
That I think that kind of idea of any kind of coming under the thumbs of Americans was so much more. It's obviously it's hugely unpopular everywhere across Canada except for a little bit in Alberta and Saskatchewan, but it was so unpopular everywhere. But it was even more unpopular in Quebec to the extent that let's be frank, this is a hold your nose vote in Quebec because they're the Bloc there's nothing they did to alienate these voters. It's just you're a separatist party running in a rally around the flag moment, which is, going to be a hard hill to climb.
And I love that Blanchette in all of the debates was like, yeah, I get it. Like, I'll just be over here hanging out. Don't worry about it. It's cool.
Yeah. I like the last week where he was just like, I mean, Carney's going to win, so why bother? Like, he was just like,
he was like doing a Sudoku over there at his podium.
Yeah, like his message to voters was just like, I mean, you don't have to vote Liberal. If you want to.
Up to you guys, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when you factor that in, like, they didn't actually do that bad, still having 20 seats. I mean, obviously, there's parts of Quebec that will never vote Liberal, but the Liberal haven of Montreal expand. Like, obviously, they got all that, but then they got all the suburbs on the North and South Shore, which usually is like a dogfight between Liberals and Bloc. So, obviously, they expanded their map quite a bit around Montreal, and not that much beyond that. I mean, but that's a ton of seats. It's not as big as the 905, but the suburbs of Montreal are obviously a ton of seats. The question, though, ignoring the fact that Poilievre has a clear tie to Trump that he cannot escape and does not seem to want to escape, is there a reason the Liberals are always the party that benefits from the rally around the flag? Is it just because they've always been in power, and so we associate them with like the natural governing party?
I mean, they're kind of like I think in a moment of stress, which is where we're at right now, the Liberals have this history of being like kind of a safer choice, right? They're moderates, they're centrists, they're not going to do anything super crazy. It's kind of just a safe haven when everything else is feeling a little bit nuts. And I feel like that's probably a small part of why they pick it. Pierre Poilievre being probably the biggest reason, but part of the reason.
Yeah, I think the rally around the flag especially helps because they're the color of the flag.
Oh my God, that's true.
They chose so well when they chose the flag.
They definitely did. I also think hilariously though that rally around the flag thing, like being the natural governing party of Canada, they always call themselves, always their fucking downfall. Because they always get so comfortable in it, and they always make stupid backroom deals because they're like, it doesn't matter, we're in charge, it's great. We're always going to be, the jazz age will never end. and they always end up falling apart because of it. Like they did last year.
The Weimar Republic will last 1,000 years.
Yes, exactly.
Cabaret forever. No, I mean, I remember being tail end of high school, so what would that be, like 2004? And I remember reading a book called, I think it was called The Big Red Machine, and it was all about how like the Liberal Party is so brilliant, so dominant, such an electoral juggernaut.
2004, you say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was also so funny because it was like, I get why it felt that way. They were at 11 years of rule at that point, which they're probably going to hit again this time around, if not longer, almost certainly longer, unless Carney massively fucks this up. But it's also so hilarious because that entire Chrétien era, the right vote was completely split in half. He had done nothing to earn that. The Conservatives had done that to themselves. And every election, what a shock. The Liberals win a massive majority, and they got, between 30 and 40% of the vote in most places but the Conservatives were split between Canadian Alliance got like 10 and the PCs got like 15. And it's like, oh, wow, the Liberals won easily. It's like, yeah, because two conservative parties. And I know that's also the argument everyone makes about the NDP and the Liberals and why they should merge, which I don't agree with, but whatever. But like, two conservative parties were just split for 11 years. And then when they finally got their act together, they won almost immediately. So the idea that, and you're seeing it in talked about in the States with like lessons Democrats can learn from the Liberal Party here is that the Liberals are just brilliant and always going to win. They have a lot of built-in advantages. They usually choose leaders who don't kill them until they do, which Trudeau would have done. But they don't. They're popular at the outset at least and hang on for a long time. There's a few exceptions. Paul Martin, obviously, no one really loved, but he didn't I don't think he was the reason they lost. Whereas the Conservatives choose leaders who are just like immediately anathema to 50 to 60% of the population. So there's that, but at the end of the day, they're just benefiting from a lot of luck. I mean, Carney could not have had a easier path to this. He comes in.
Trudeau's path was easier.
Yeah.
In 2015? I know because he's dead, but I mean like. Trudeau was going up against a government that wasn't that unpopular in Harvard. It was unpopular by the end, but it wasn't that bad. Carney comes in. His only real opposition is too tainted by her association with the Trudeau years to really put up a challenge. Gets the nomination, gets the party leadership, no problem. Then, just by his name not being Trudeau, party jumps up 15, 20 points in the polls. Then Trump just gives the perfect gift of 51st state, tariffs. And he just I mean, do we know anything about Mark Carney that we think made a single person vote for him other than his name and titles? Like, he's a blank sheet of paper. We're going to learn about this guy as he is our prime minister, which is pretty rare.
That's fun, though.
It is, yeah. It's like a very high stakes first date. It's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. No, I do think, like, given the tariff stuff and given the economic precarity we're about to go into, like, it's the right time to have someone with an economic background in the big boy seat. I think it's a good time to do it. But yeah, I mean, we're going to learn all of his likes and dislikes and what his sign is and stuff. It's exciting. Yeah.
See if he's mean to waiters.
Oh my
and,
God, yeah. How much do you tip? Like, yeah, I know, it's hopefully well. What if he doesn't? Oh, no.
Oh, what if he's got a crazy ex in the UK?
We got to get her on the podcast.
He does, and she was named Liz Truss. And she tried to badmouth him to us.
What? They dated? Did they
No.
No, like
She just-
ex, like because he was in the central bank there. Not, I was using the analogy.
I got so excited. I was like, I thought they'd been married forever, but what if there is intrigue? Okay.
That would be pretty hot.
That would be crazy.
Mark Carney and Liz Truss would be pretty hot. Agree to disagree, but hey, let your freak flag fly. Whatever
You don't know my
people are into.
fanfic.
Oh, yeah, wait, I have to write something down.
Yes, I mean, don't get me wrong. There is something. I completely agree. On paper, and given the situation, he might be the it's not the man that you need for the moment. It's the moment you need for the man. All that stuff, or vice versa, whatever. It might be perfect. He also might be a guy who, in 6 months, we're like, him? We did that? I don't know. We have no way of knowing. And we've just given him probably 4 years for us to figure it out together. So we've made a pretty big commitment. We've moved in for 4 years.
Oh, no. Why did we sign that long lease?
That is a long ass lease. I'm. That's fine. Let's do this. Let's take the leap. Let's buy some plants together, and it's too late to wind it back. So you might as well hope that for the best at this point, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's nothing to be done now. I will say, as a someone who is a little suspicious of him, I am happy he doesn't have a majority from this. Like, I want him to have a very strong minority, which he will. But from the sense of, like, I think hopefully, even decimated though they are, the NDP is able to keep him from going completely austerity mode, which is my concern that he would do. So I am glad we haven't, I don't know, married him or whatever, however we stretch the analogy into.
I mean, the
into this
NDP are
romance.
famously such shrewd negotiators with a really strong leader at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll pull that off.
I know. He will have a year where the NDP will have to, on any confidence vote, have to back him just because they are so decimated as a party. They can't possibly be willing to run an election until they get their new leader, until they build back up some finances, et cetera, et cetera. The NDP will have to find an excuse to support whatever he does on a confidence motion. But at the same time, maybe just the threat of it will make him not go full, like, hey, what if we just didn't pay healthcare bills for a year and see what happened, like things like that. That I worry he would go in, like, again, UK tradition, right? Like austerity, and I'm not saying he wants to go that far, but it's a concern of mine. So I am glad he doesn't have a full majority. Why don't we turn our attention to the Conservative Party, to the extent we already haven't, but officially turn our attention to the Conservative Party.
I actually have to do something here. I got a message earlier. I'm going to see if I can play this on here. We'll splice it in maybe later if I need to. Claire Blackwood couldn't be here tonight because she's too busy running around the streets of Toronto just high-fiving strangers since Pierre Poilievre lost. But she did send this message for the podcast.
It's so beautiful.
That's it.
Just a Joker laugh. Yes. So for sure, and we're going to get into the fact that he lost the seat. Don't get me wrong. Let's talk about the party first. There are some positives here. As I mentioned, highest share of the vote in decades. They gained 20 seats, and they did prevent that Liberal majority I was just talking about, which most pollsters were predicting. At the same time, they're staring down the barrel of what will likely be somewhere close to 14 years in opposition, and their leader doesn't have a seat in the House anymore. So, same question.
Actually, he doesn't have a house with a seat in it anymore because he can't live at Stornoway anymore because he's not an MP.
Can he not live there even though he's opposition leader?
I'm pretty sure he can't. I think all of that shit that he was saying about, like, Mark Carney is an unelected leader, blah, blah, blah. When it's PM, it's kind of okay for that, like, really short period. But when you're a party leader as a party, it's not.
Wow.
You can't be a party leader if you're not a sitting MP.
I mean, that's pretty funny.
I don't believe. I might be misunderstanding.
I mean,
this.
I hope you're right, just because, like, someone get me a photo of him moving out, please. The Beaverton will pay top dollar, by which I mean $25 for a photo of Pierre
him next to a
Poilievre.
U-Haul.
Yeah, carrying some moving boxes with, like, Fragile on them. We will give that. So, I mean, I hope you're right there. I honestly don't know. I'm not doubting you. I just didn't know that.
I also may have fully misheard that from the podcast I was listening to earlier, but
Yeah, so I mean that would be fully hilarious and phenomenal. I think what would happen assuming that is true, I think what would obviously happen is a conservative MP will step down and he will take his seat. But before we get to that, let's talk.
Isn't it a conservative MP would step down and he would have to run in the by-election?
Yes, he would have to run, but as long as it's a safe enough seat, I mean, he would win.
I mean, the man is box office poison.
I hear you.
So,
I hear you. I mean, I would think if it's a rural Alberta riding, he's gonna get in. I mean,
I guess.
we talk about total numbers, but keep in mind there are seats, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan, that the Conservatives win by 50, 60, 70 points.
sure. I do find it weird that he was running in like the outside of Ottawa and Ontario for all this time and somehow winning it.
Yeah, I mean, he had it for decades.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, he got parachuted in when he got the leadership, and this was like the best seat they could find.
Yeah, he basically walked from his paper route into that MP job.
Yeah.
They had the Teened MP,
Well,
which
don't
is
forget-
a CBC show that we all forget.
Yeah.
Teen MP was great.
Oh, it's juicy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
weirdly sexual.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot
the
of,
love
like,
triangles,
nipples.
yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's like Euphoria, but in the House of Commons.
Yeah, a very wet show.
yes. So, besides that, sorry.
You were saying.
No, it's fine. So, okay, well, let's talk about Pierre first. Then we'll talk about the park. Because we're already into it. The
Sorry.
For those who don't, for those
I
no, it's
couldn't
fine.
wait.
It's fine. for those who weren't following, I will the new MP for it's Carleton, right? Is Bruce Fanjoy. No one thought he was going to win. Absent the only time I heard rumors that he was going to win, other than him tweeting, because he was a very prominent Twitter user about X, whatever, about that he was going to win. It was like every time Pierre would post something, he'd caption it, he'd quote tweet it, and be like, I'm going to beat you in the fall. And everyone's like, yeah. And so the only time was when there was polling that showed a massive wave towards the Liberals, which did not happen. Again, the Liberals did underperformed in Ontario. And so the fact that he lost in a non-wave situation was a huge shock. And it was one of those things where the whole night, watching it again on CBC, they're just like, okay, this must be early vote. Okay, he's up 2,000 votes, but that's probably early vote. And all the day of vote's going to come in, and that's, that'll be him. And there was a huge delay because there was a longest ballot ever movement to get as many candidates on the ballot as possible to make the ballot, as Dave, I forget the guy's name, but the guy who was doing the board at CBC said, look at the girth of this thing as he held it sideways. You could have just held it vertically and said, look at the length of it, but all right. Real girth master of an election ballot.
Well, he used to be on Teen MP.
Yeah,
right.
yes. Yeah, no, I remember that.
yeah.
That was a good arc.
Yeah.
We can't repeat it on the podcast,
Yeah,
but it was a good arc.
Too filthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a real love triangle situation with Stephen Harper and never mind, I won't finish that thought. But anyways, yes. So there was that obviously added a huge wrinkle to it, and it's already got conservative conspiracy theorists going about how something fishy was done.
Doesn't sound like that.
Yeah, exactly. But which we obviously won't entertain, but that's fine. But anyway, so he won, and that was declared very, very late on election night / early the next day. So, this is a true shock. Yes, that riding was becoming, as a lot of ex-urban ridings are becoming, more suburban and less ex-urban, less rural. But at the same time, I think even just 4 years ago, he won it handedly.
Sure, yeah.
So to your point about him being just complete box office poison, it's a fascinating development because it just wasn't. It was either going to be massive Liberal majority and he loses his seat, or Liberal minority and he wins easily. These two things happening at the same time did not compute for anyone.
No, of course.
Well, sometimes it is. You go back to the dating analogy. You go on a couple dates with a guy and you're like, you seem nice. And then you go on 10 dates with a guy and you're like, oh, you're awful.
Yeah. You're super into crypto.
You're
oh,
the
no.
worst.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of that was this, because he's now been in the very, very, very public eye, very, national stage position. People are kind of like, oh, I don't like you.
And also, like, getting into the national eye required the leadership contest. And that was him going, like, full Super Saiyan Pierre conservative.
Yep.
And, he was always an attack dog, but no one really paid attention to him other than that time Rick Mercer made fun of him for having a pension at, like, 25. But I really do think getting the leadership left such a stink on him. And then all the stuff with the convoy. And you got to imagine, like, these people are living in the suburbs of Ottawa. So they're like, hey, you know what we don't like? The convoy.
Very good point. I hadn't factored that in. That is a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just wondering. I just thought they hated the makeover. I just thought they were like, no, glasses with a little bit of chubby cheeks, fine. No glasses and tight T-shirts, nah.
What is this, Teen MP? Smut? Get this smut off my television.
So the question, having established that he's lost a seat, the question is, and you've added some good points that I wasn't aware of about the logistics of this whole thing, but the question is, like, do you think...
I also may have made those up. I could very well be wrong.
We're a place for conjecture. It's fine.
Good.
Do you think he can stay on as leader, or do you think he's getting, the knives are coming out, he's getting shoved out the door?
I think he has spent 4 years riding that party so hard, not letting anyone talk to the media, huge discipline, being a huge asshole about it. I think he delivered them this almost like a victory. Like they overperformed. They did really, really well. But he also was supposed to deliver them a majority, did not. And I think he has such a punchable face. And I think he's been such an asshole to everyone, including his own caucus.
Yep.
Yeah, the knives are coming out for sure.
That's so, you made two really sincere points, and then you went, and also equal sincerity level of punchable face. Like you said it exactly
from the bottom of my heart. I really, but
no, I'm complimenting your delivery. It was great.
And I know I'm being facetious there, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's just such an unpleasant person.
I mean, you already see. We saw the knives coming out as soon as the campaign started from Doug Ford being like, "Fuck this guy." Like no one likes him in the conservative movement widely in Canada, and I am curious about. Because I know we had conservatism sort of glom together and become one party very, very recently. I wonder if this sort of like leaning towards the alt-right MAGA, like Pierre Poilievre style politics, and the more traditional like your grandpa in a suit kind of conservatism, I wonder if the friction between those two factions is going to potentially break the party apart again, because they're two very, very strong, very opposing, very cutthroat factions that are having trouble getting along under the tent at this point.
I mean, that would be amazing. Just like, I mean, it's such a similar schism as happened 40 years ago with Reform breaking off. That'd be amazing to see history repeat itself that way. I mean, I don't think I don't disagree. I think that's a very big possibility that there is just simply no way for your, what's the Nova Scotia premier who put out a campaign ad like 2 days before the vote?
Yeah.
Tim Houston and Pierre Poilievre to exist in the same party. It is very possible that similar to how it's like, how does, in the United States, how does Joe Biden and AOC continue to exist in the same party?
Sure, yeah.
But there, it's such a two-party system that it's impossible to schism. Here, it's very not impossible to schism.
And the thing that kills me with Poilievre is that he's speaking to real things. When he talks about cost of living, housing, all of this stuff, he said it in the creepiest fucking way. The idea of like people delaying having families and all, he had to make it about biological clocks and, incel nonsense. But like, he's talking about real things. His plans won't address those.
Yeah.
His entire plan is let's give all of our money to the private sector and hope they give some of it back to us one day. But he's talking about real things, and I do think that truly motivates people. Because Carney is like, this is a thing we should maybe talk about at some point. We'll let the private sector build more houses because they love doing things in the public interest, I guess. I am a bank. But like, I just think Poilievre, he flew too close to the sun on this identity thing that he created around himself. And he's the only one he thinks he's the only one that can speak for the party. And I think they will eat him because of that. But I think if they're smart, they will say, we got to keep doing the stuff he was talking about. We just got to do it in a friendlier face.
Yeah.
Yeah, populism without all of the biological clocks and convoy bullshit. And, like populism, for many reasons, has become a very right-coded word. It doesn't have to be.
I hate to say it, Doug Ford really kind of has the recipe down for it right now.
No, he does. Even though he doesn't do any of the things you're saying the conservatives should do.
Not even close.
He doesn't build houses. He doesn't talk to economic inequality. He doesn't support the working classes who are moving towards a conservative vote because of social and economic concerns. So even though he he succeeds. He doesn't actually bring any of the things you're saying that will help the Conservatives.
Not
But I
even a
agree,
little.
he succeeds electorally on all those things. He just doesn't actually do them at the end of the day. And it's been, what is it, like 7 years now, and he's clearly not going to change. But I agree, if the Conservatives are smart, and I can't believe I'm saying this, he's their guy.
I mean, he do have Little Shovel.
I forgot about Little Shovel.
You're gonna call
Little
the man
Shovel.
with Little Shovel if you want to dig your way out.
Big man, Little Shovel.
Big man, Little Shovel, dig out of problem. Help us, Shovel Daddy.
I mean, they will be sacrificing what seats they have in Quebec. They will lose probably all of Quebec. I don't think. Maybe they hang on to some, but those like 10 or so seats they maintain around Quebec City, I just can't imagine with Doug Ford they would keep even half of those. But I could be very wrong about that. But that's just speculation. The thing that was like, sorry,
They'll
go ahead.
pick up 905 though with Doug Ford
Yes.
in a major way.
But didn't they just pick up the 905? Like they got a lot of them.
They got a few.
Okay.
They got like Vaughan and Milton, but like as soon as you get into like Brampton, Mississauga, it's much more red.
They kept one Brampton at last count.
Did they?
Yeah, one
Okay.
Brampton. I forget which one. But they were leading in almost all of them. And
Oh,
again, that's where
that's
that
where I
whole
left
the
off.
early vote
Okay.
came in, and most of them, by not a lot, came in. They also got one in Toronto proper. They got York with Roman Baber.
Oh no, is that where we are right now?
we gotta get out of here.
No, this is north of
It's like the Warriors.
This is mostly north of the
Sun's gone
401.
down, and we got to get on the train.
What a pull! What a reference!
that movie rules.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, that like again, Ontario, they did better than expected, and that's some of the examples of that. And Doug Ford, yeah, if you want to win Etobicoke, Mississauga, Brampton, Richmond Hill, etc., like that's Doug Ford's your man, no doubt about that. Unless he, loses whatever juice he's got here in between now and when there's a leadership race. But Poilievre says he's going to stay on. He was very clear about that. He also said, we've held the Liberals and the NDP so they don't have the balance of power. And it's like, no, you didn't.
Well, I love that he gave that speech at like 1 a.m., like just rushed out, like yanking his wife on stage to make this speech before they called whether the Liberals had a majority or a minority. And he was like, yes, we have prevented a majority, I think. And then also, I am definitely staying on as leader no matter what happens. Please don't look at my numbers in my riding. And it's that kind of thing of like, he's about to be fired, and he just runs out and is like, I'm going to work here forever. You can't fire me.
Well, that's the Trump playbook, right? Like he'll just get out ahead of whatever is actually happening. He'll say a lie. He'll say what he wants to happen, and everyone is like, what an interesting take on reality, even though we all know it's a lie. Yeah, it's straight out of that playbook.
Yeah.
But speaking of Trump, I mean, that is I think what you said about the caucus and provincial leaders clearly are coming for that job. I mean, 3 of them, God, Nova Scotia, Ontario, and Alberta are all clearly gunning for something here. But the base loves him.
Yes.
In a way they did not love O'Toole and did not love Scheer.
No.
And now Scheer obviously had the religious conservatives, which is a big block, but he did not have the support across the board with the base that Poilievre does. So I think he stays on. I mean, that is I could be completely wrong. I think he finds a seat, and there was some rumor that he was going to take the seat they didn't expect to win in Edmonton, which would be ridiculous because the reason they didn't expect to win it is because the NDP usually wins it. So in a by-election, the NDP could win it back. So I would be shocked if he went there. But anyways, I think he finds a seat in rural Alberta, rural Saskatchewan, with some MP who's willing to stay on his side and become, a very well-paid consultant or whatever, and stays in, because I think he is so popular with the base in a way that none of the provincial leaders are, and he has, he's perfectly happy to have a knife fight in an alley.
No, sure.
So don't get me wrong. I think there's a very good chance he's gone. I just think, I don't know. I wouldn't bet against him finding a way to stay on by the skin of his teeth or whatever, just because, I just don't think any one of those leaders who has their knives out for him is as popular with the base. Danielle Smith, maybe, but God, what a disaster that would be for the Conservatives. And Doug Ford, I mean, we saw last night, and we can talk about this, the MP, Jamil Javani, who's, don't get me wrong, staunch Poilievre ally, who just came out and trashed Doug Ford. And the trashing is interesting, but also the reaction it got for the people, the stunned Conservatives at the headquarters who were watching, knowing that they were losing. That was their highlight of the night.
Yeah.
That was their favorite moment.
It was the best. It was like a wrestling promo. it was like someone from CBC was like, so what do you think of the night? He was like, I want to talk about Doug Ford. And they were like, what?
He had just won a seat.
God.
And they were like, anyways. And he was like, Doug Ford surrounds himself with goons. He's a poser. He's a faker. He's bad for Ontario.
I'm coming for you, brother. He turned into Hulk Hogan. It was great.
when I get you in the 4-square ring.
But yeah, like calling out Doug Ford for like throwing Poilievre under the bus and attacking him, and Doug Ford was propping up Justin Trudeau or something like that.
100%.
Yeah, just going after it, and yeah, the bad blood there is amazing.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't think that will play with like the non-base though. I wonder if the Conservatives are going to have that sort of slightly more sensible attitude of like, we do need to appeal to people beyond the base. Like it's so off-putting. That's the guy who's friends with JD Vance too, right?
Oh, was it? Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's just like, I think we've seen on the world stage JD Vance go to a bunch of places and just everyone be like, this guy's boo. Like just like he's awful. He's so like slimy and terrible. And I wonder if that the Conservatives care at all that maybe elevating that discourse is not. People are already nervous around Pierre Poilievre. You get someone who slings even more mud, and you start elevating those voices in the party. Your base better grow, and it better get stronger, and you better make sure that your base is hardcore, because moderates are not coming for that attitude. They're just not.
I know, but the way you win a nomination is the base. You know what I mean? That's the eternal struggle of it. Is like, how do you have a leadership nomination process that chooses someone who is electable to people who aren't Conservative Party members? And I agree with everything you just said, don't get me wrong, but I still think in the conversation about who's the party leader, you're asking dyed-in-the-wool Conservative members, and I think I'm sure in the next couple of weeks someone will put a poll out of Angus Reid or someone will poll Conservative members about whether Poilievre should stay, and that will decide it one way or another. Because if he's losing with them, then I completely agree with you what you said, and he goes. But if he's got 60, 70%, 80% support amongst the members, I think he'll find a way to hang on. And I'm not saying he'll win in 3-4 years, whenever the next election is, but he'll hang on as opposition leader, even if he's got to temporarily get an Airbnb or something. Yeah. No, I do think though, like all that stuff about the base. The scary part though is that the base that he has a real glom on to, that he's really plugged into, are the young people. Yep. Like you look at the people who elected Carney, and it's boomers. Yep. Boomers on down, and with him it's the youths who again I am scared of.
They're frightening. I get it.
Yeah, they're very frightening. And Poilievre just like he has developed this entire strategy of like I don't talk to any real media. I am a meme candidate entirely, and the Liberals and the NDP at this point haven't realized that that's kind of where politics is moving to, and I don't like it one bit.
No,
I don't disagree, but I will say if you're running a campaign that banks on boomers, kind of aging out, aka dying out of the electorate. You still got a few years on that. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, it will happen eventually.
Wait till COVID too. They got that in the works. Sorry, I've been on the memes. Reading about the conspiracy.
Yes, Reddit is cooking up Super COVID 2, and it's going to come to your mom and dad 2026. Yeah, right.
On that wonderful note, I think we will wrap things up for this week. We are not going to do a quiz because we just wanted to save all our time for the election breakdown. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you so much, Ian and Megan, for being here. If you could be so kind, please feel free to jump on your podcast app of choice, throw down 5 stars, throw down a review. You can do your own impression of Jordan Peterson crying. It won't work on text, but still try. We do appreciate you all so much. Feel free to follow us on social media, share our clips, spread the word of the podcast so we can finally defeat Joe Rogan and also Amy Poehler, although we don't have anything against her. But they're the number 1 and 2 in podcasting, so I guess we're coming for them both. But him angrily and her just like respectfully. Anyways, thank you for listening, everyone. Have a wonderful week. And I should mention I will be gone for the next 2 weeks. I know I'm just back for this episode, but I will be gone for the next 2 weeks. But wonderful Ian MacIntyre, who's did such a great job last week, will be filling in once again as host. So
no, it's the Ian MacIntyre from Elwood Transcona. He didn't win his seat, so he's coming here to host the podcast. I'm sure he'll be good at it. Right?
Yeah, he's really funny.
He's free.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ian. Sorry.
All right, so be kind, Ian. Leave a lot of reviews talking about how great he is, and we'll talk to you soon.
The Beaverton Weekly Report is produced by Andrew Rivamy in partnership with the From Superheroes Network. Visit FromSuperheroes.com to hear more great podcasts like this.